Hello, everyone, and welcome to Answer the Call. Today's topic is, what is the purpose of ground vehicles in Star Citizen? We just had an ISC about how they're doing these updates to make the ground vehicles more physicalized, based on physics, the wheels and slipping and spin and all that stuff. And yeah, I continue to not see the purpose of ground vehicles, period, in Star Citizen. In the current state that the game is in, there is zero reason other than roleplay reasons, cool factor. That's really it. Obviously, the Grey Cat Rock has its mining reasons, so that vehicle kind of gets pushed aside because they literally had to create a reason for it, because there wasn't a reason to have mining on a ground vehicle, because it can't mine bigger rocks, it can't mine smaller rocks, so they had to make a rock for it. Now, money being the reason, and no fly zones being the reason. I've seen a lot when we were discussing this before. No fly zones are a little bit weird to me, because they were like seemingly pushing them hard, and now they seem to be going away from them. So I don't know if no fly zones are going to be like a valid purpose and a valid reason for the future. Although if we do end up with no fly zones, that obviously would make some sense. But what I'm looking for when people are calling into the show, or if you're commenting below, or comment on YouTube, or commenting on Twitch chat, is try and come up with valid, really purposeful reasons that CIG and Star Citizen can develop into Star Citizen that would give you a reason to use a ground vehicle over a ship. Because in every situation in the game currently, I would never use a ground vehicle over a spaceship. So that's where I'm coming from. The one argument that people have made so far that I'm going to make as well is the most obvious one. If an area has really good anti-air coverage, so let's like use the bunkers in Star Citizen, for example, if those worked really well and popped in and did a lot of damage, that would be a reason for using ground vehicles. I don't know what the status of it is in 3.12, but in previous patches, if I tried to land an Ursa rover and then drive in, I was shot at by the AA turrets as well, because I don't think the game separates ships from vehicles in any way. But yeah, so I don't see a purpose for them the way the game is built because of the scale of Star Citizen. It's so big. I think the obvious other one is clearly racing. Racing's fun. There's no reason why we shouldn't have racing with ground vehicles in Star Citizen, but let's look at it from why do a lot of our ships have the ability to carry vehicles? What do we use them for? So let's talk about that. Let's come up with some reasons for that. We have our first caller today, and his name is Reezer. I just got to jump in the Discord, actually. There we go. Hello, Reezer. How's it going?
Hello, Mike. What's up?
Not much. So what for you is the purpose of ground vehicles in Star Citizen? Because I'm just not seeing it.
All right. So I have been thinking a lot about it because I really enjoy driving them, but I think I generally agree with you in that it's essentially impossible that a ground vehicle would be preferable over a spaceship on the surface of the planet under normal or current circumstances, right? I think we agree on that.
Yeah.
So hypothetically, as the game stands right now, the only way that players would ever want to use them under these normal circumstances would probably be that the guns or other combat capabilities on them would be powerful enough that it would warrant using them in a fight for some reason, if that fight takes place in atmosphere near the ground. If that's ever a scenario where like the ships cannot easily escape or go to a higher altitude where they escape the range of the guns, and these guns would be powerful enough to be preferable over a spaceship or like the weaponry on a spaceship.
Yeah, but that's like
now that's obviously
that's making some that's fine. That's making some like really big assumptions that basically the way flight works now would completely change, right? Like ships are able to just
I agree. It's not something that I find likely that's ever going to be the case. So as of now, that's obviously not the case anyways with the guns either, because the Ursa has like 2 size 1 guns, and the Tumbler Cyclone TR is the name, the one with the machine gun that has like 1 size 1 gun. So it's definitely not the case nor does it seem that CIG is going in that right direction.
Yeah.
Other obvious examples that will most likely come in the future and has been mentioned by chat before are racing and instances where you are raiding a base with extremely powerful anti-aircraft defenses where the developers kind of force you into having to use a ground vehicle because any and all ships would just be one shot by a turret, for example, right?
Sure.
Or something to sneak around undetected because ground vehicles would have very low signature in the future, which they probably do now. I haven't really checked.
I don't know what their signature is either. That was one thing that somebody mentioned yesterday when we were talking about this, and I was hoping people would mention today, is you can create the thing with the AA turrets is it would only be able to see ships. It would only be able to lock onto things or find them if they had a signature over like 500, let's say. And I think 500 is like I think they mentioned that because they know that's like the lowest point that some ships are at with their signature. And then ground vehicles you could just set at lower than that, and that would be like a more stealthy thing. And then obviously you can create defense against that as well, but they wouldn't be AA defense. It would be ground vehicle defense. It would be something like I don't know, a Nova tank would have a radar that could see the signature of ground vehicles easier or whatever. So yeah.
Yes, but in any case, I think we are both talking about almost scripted scenarios and almost entirely PvE, right? I don't know. It's a very like hold your hand kind of situation.
Sure. Do you think that's a negative?
No, that's what I'm trying to get into.
Okay.
I personally don't mind forcing the player's hands into using a specific spaceship or ground vehicle to do a certain mission or instance or raid or whatever that's going to be content in the future, if there is enough content or mission variety for them to do.
Yeah.
Let's take the follow.
I had some ideas. It's fine. I had some ideas in mind as well. I just didn't want to say them because I wanted to allow people to bring them up. But like missions, like saying, go to this place, take this vehicle, bring it over here, like the steps and having the vehicle be part of the step is a really good way of making them useful in like the most simple fashion possible, right? Like if it's part of the mission, it is now useful, even though it doesn't have a use that is better than a ship. If the mission requires it, then you have to use it. Now, what is the lore behind why you need to use it is what CIG has to do a better job of explaining, designing, whatever. But yeah, I mean, I don't think there's anything wrong with saying, go here, use this as part of a mission.
Yes, I think a better game design would be if they make the requirement slightly less obvious. For example, there is a giant cave system this has also been mentioned in the chat, by the way. There is a giant cave system that essentially serves as a raid or an instance, and the only way to enter is to party up with a certain number of players and essentially raid this underground pirate facility. And the only entrance to it is a cave that only a cyclone would fit through, for example. Correct? I think that would be like a way to set limits to what vehicles you can use, but it's not like a mission requirement that is like written in the mission description. It's a less obvious way to force the player's hands. I don't know. I like that idea a lot. I think we agree on that.
That one was mentioned a lot, and I think that's one of like the more obvious, like easy to go to answers for it. And I think it's a really good way for CIG to make it happen. For me personally, and I don't know what to do because I'm afraid that if you and I keep talking, we're going to take a lot of ideas of other people. But I'm also don't want the show to be like 10 minutes long. So today I'm actually struggling on how to like be the host. But the thing for me and the cave situation, and another one that other people have brought up that I'm going to see if people say, is that's all fine and great. But if we're only using vehicles in these like very kind of like niche specific examples, I feel like it's a loss from Star Citizen. I know Star Citizen is a space game. I know ships are a huge part of Star Citizen. But am I, and I'm just going to ask this question to you, Reezer, and I'll probably ask it to the other people as well. Am I stupid in thinking that the game Star Citizen could be and should be designed to be enjoyed without ever using a spaceship, potentially. Could I get my little homestead on wherever and then maybe only use ground vehicles? Is that something they should do? I don't know. But like,
it's gonna be really difficult because so far everything we see, and the issue that this conversation or this topic comes from is basically because everything is revolving around spaceships right now. So that's gonna need CIG to look at the game from an entirely different point of view, like a fundamentally different approach to the game in terms of game design at its core, game design that we have now. So I hope so. I would like there to be enough, you know how much I am riding on multi-crew, right? So it's the same thing. I would like to be enough enjoyment, content, and gameplay out of the other than the act of flying and fighting with your own ship by being in a driver's seat to make the game worthwhile. For me, that's a prerequisite to the game ever succeeding, honestly. I tell you already, if multi-crew is not going to be ever in the game in a meaningful way, then the entire thing is a wash, to me personally. And I think this applies to your approach too. I think they need to make something like base building, something like being an industrial player, being a trader, fun enough where you don't necessarily need to fly your own ship, because that's not just the point of the game. But again, we are talking about possible feature creep. This is like the counter argument, right? That we already have so much promised and not even implemented feature creep that do we even want more? Where nobody ever knows what's going to be the final scope of the game, or when it could possibly come out, or where we would see, not even coming out, where we would see all these systems eventually coming together and understanding what the game is going to look like as a possible finished product, right? The feature creep is already insane.
But I don't think this necessarily is feature creep when asking for like vehicles to have more of a purpose. I think what it really is going, okay, designers or whoever makes content at CIG, even Chris Roberts, like what's in your head in terms of putting, like, the thing that I said in the beginning was this. It's like we have a lot of bays on a lot of the ships that we have specifically for a ground vehicle. So what type of scenarios are you planning on creating for those ground vehicles? We've tried to do it when we've played together, Reezer, and did our, like, because here's the thing about ground vehicles is how they exist right now is based off of only Imagine content. Only the players who are playing in the game currently going, you know what? Yeah, we're going to go over here. We're going to drop the ground vehicle on the ground. We're going to be flying in the air, and you're going to fly out, and then you're going to go down to the outpost. You're going to do, like, it's all these 100%. Things that we're crafting. Now, the big part of this show for me is this is CIG's job in so many ways to make it so we're not imagining these ideas and these scenarios in our head and creating them. Like, emergent gameplay is great, but the thing with ground vehicles, the thing with ships, the thing with FPS is the game has to force it in order for it to be a good game. They always talk about emergent gameplay in Star Citizen, but emergent gameplay isn't Rexilla videos that we've seen or his streams. That's scripted gameplay. That's scripted. Yeah. Right? That's different. Emergent gameplay is things that happen organically. And how is CIG going to create the emergent gameplay reasons for us to actually bring that Ursa rover on our spaceship? I think, like, you can go back to the example of Xenothreat with the box mission thing that they did. They could do a little something with that. Like, oh, you can't fly it on a spaceship. You actually have to drive it, right? So stuff like that.
That's probably a good idea. Yes. Yeah. But again, then you have to keep the scale of the area down. And how easy will it be for other players, if you are looking at emergent gameplay, to just dominate you with their aerial superiority if you are using those ground vehicles in that tiny landmass where you can just travel that land with ground vehicles, right? Yeah. Then that means that any ship can fly in and out in seconds, right? And who knows what gameplay would that provide? It might not be ever worth it for someone sitting in a ground vehicle, or they might require immense protection.
Agreed.
I don't know. Again, I think that's a really difficult scenario to set up. And keep in mind, with this issue and CIG pushing themselves into a corner, I think this topic, the what is the purpose of something, applies to a much wider range of spaceships too. For example, dropship gameplay, luxury gameplay, news reporting gameplay, because they saw the ship for that, right?
Yeah.
And we are at the point where we have spent hundreds, or in some cases like the 890 jump, possibly thousands of dollars on ships that we don't even have the vague idea of what the gameplay for those ships is going to look like eventually.
Yeah.
And CIG has yet to communicate anything about what their own plans are for those ships. I think, again, it will come down to this, unfortunately, and it might just be something I don't see yet, right? Possibly. But what I said previously is that CIG kind of forced themselves into a position where they have to set up scenarios for like the 890 jump, where there is a high profile diplomat that wants to go from one planet to another, and then the only ship that he and his convoy or whatever is willing to fly with is an 890 jump, for example, and then that 890 jump will be attacked by ships and stuff like that. That's forced. That's
really
forced. It's going to be really difficult.
Yeah,
really forced.
So, but again, I think with ground vehicles it could be less forced.
I hope so. I hope so, Mike. Trust me. It's just really difficult because I think the scope of this issue is much, much bigger than just ground vehicles.
Yeah, and let me jump in real quick though, because I think your arguments are valid, right? Like, there's so many things they haven't. I don't think they haven't communicated at all. I think when it comes to all those gameplay things you mentioned, they have communicated somewhat, but they've allowed us to imagine kind of how it would be in our head more than they're gonna put out a design doc and explain it perfectly. I think they learned from their lessons when it came from mining, fuel, all the stuff that they did put out as design docs years ago that are now invalidated by changes that they made to the game and all that. So I don't think they're super comfortable with doing those things. But the
Fair enough.
Yeah, and I think that it just is the way that is how it's going to be. They're not going to communicate it until they're actively working on it. I think they communicate fairly well with mining what they're planning on doing it because they're actively working on it, right? So when they're actively working on these things, they'll communicate them better. But yeah, I mean, I think
that is
your argument's valid, but at the same time, it's not. Is what I'm trying to say is because it's tough. And we actually have hold on. We actually have like a CIG dev in chat who said the hard part for mission design, which he's a mission designer, is how to incentivize players to use them because the only tool they have right now is money. And honestly, money is boring in a game like Star Citizen right now. It has to be like items, reputation, this, that, like there needs to be more. So, like, big part of what's missing and making these things work is like all the other things around them, right? But Reezer, I'm sorry because I've been talking over you a lot. Just final couple thoughts and then we'll move on to the next caller.
I would say it still doesn't take away from the absurdity that we are paying 70, 80, 90 bucks, or even over $100 in terms of the ballista, for example, for a ground vehicle that we'll probably have nowhere near the amount of content as something like a Cutlass, which is the same price and will be a general purpose thing in the future. It's really strange, and CIG is really bad at telling us that this ship is going to have a very narrow and specific use. And if they would be more upfront with that, I think, again, we are back at the marketing issue. I think if they would be more upfront with many things about the project, people would be a lot more accepting and a lot less jaded about the project. Essentially, that's my take. Again, but to finalize, I personally think that if they have interesting scripted content, or not even scripted, but where there are strict limitations to a mission, to an objective or something, if it's interesting, if it's varied, if there is a lot of options, it might be fine. That's my final take on these.
Yeah.
Having a purpose or giving a purpose to a specific ship or ground vehicle.
I think it's a great point, and I'll let you go, and I'll kind of give my thoughts on it while you're in the caller dump. But I appreciate your call, Reezer. Thank you so much, man. And
Thank you, Mike.
I'm playing one of their commercials right now, and the reason why I'm playing one of their commercials is because this is the way they communicate ground level play, right? So the only way they can communicate things that don't exist is in content like this that they put on the website that's crafted by them. But the problem with it is I think the problem that inherently is there that I had mentioned previously is that they're not doing the best job of communicating their actual vision of the game to the players, as well as they are trying to make cool looking cinematics. So obviously with the ballista, it's pretty simple. You sit on the ground, you fire missiles at ships, right? I don't think it's that crazy or difficult to think about. But the issue for me is the same that Reezer has, is I have a hard time understanding what the vision is because maybe the way they're communicating it isn't perfect, and I don't know what the vision for ground vehicles are. Right? And I think that's really what it comes down to is I don't know what the vision for ground vehicles are. So who is that on? Is that on me or is that on them? And I feel like that's kind of on them. But all right, let's go to our next caller, Uri the Smoke. Uri, what's up, man? Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Awesome. So I know, our first caller, we talked about a lot of things. You feel free to respond to anything that he might have said, so on and so forth, because I think this topic is kind of tight and it's tough to add to. So the first caller is always going to get an advantage there. But what do you think about everything?
Okay. So I jotted some notes down.
Okay.
First, I guess I want to talk about what ground vehicles are, what I use ground vehicles for now, currently.
Okay.
The gameplay that I enjoy with them, like prison breaks, like using the ground vehicle to help you escape from the prisons. That I enjoy that,
and it was put there by them.
Yes, by them. That's very controlled gameplay for CIG to influence in the use of things.
Mm-hmm.
Outside of that, I've used ground vehicles to sneak up on bounties or miners.
Okay.
To steal stuff from, to attack them and steal stuff from them. Since the ship I'm using, they'll be able to see it from anywhere. So I've used a ground vehicle to sneak up and get close to them.
Okay.
For the outpost, you kind of confused me when you said that we can't use the vehicles to sneak up on outposts anymore.
I had been shot at by AA turrets in previous patches, but I did say I wasn't sure what it was like now. So I'm glad you're mentioning it. Okay. What's your experience like?
Like up until 3.12, I've always used the ground vehicle to sneak up onto them, and they've never shot at me.
I was in an Ursa and they destroyed us.
Like I've always been in the Cyclones, just ride on up to them. Sometimes even a buggy. Never even turned my way.
Interesting. That's so weird. I've had a different experience. Let's just say.
Okay, especially was it? I don't remember what planet it's on, but the one where the outposts have those like ship parts or whatever blocking some of the views. I've parked my ship behind one of them. They'll shoot at it. I'll drive my Cyclone out and right on up to the door. Do the mission, hop back in, and gone. Never even messed with the turret. The turrets. Okay, but that's strange.
Yeah, but strange. I mean, I see this in Twitch chat, and I was going to say this anyway. Is any ship that can carry a ground vehicle can take out the turrets themselves?
True.
So.
True.
Again, to ask that same question again, what's the purpose? If you could do it in a ship, why would you do it in a ground vehicle other than going? Because I know how cars work in real life, and I want this game to be more immersive, so I'm going to choose to use it, even though it doesn't make as much sense as using XYZ ship, right?
I disagree with that.
Okay.
Last patch, they weren't worth shooting at. The turrets, there was too many of them. They did too much damage.
Mm-hmm.
They shot at you from too far away before you could even see them.
Yeah.
Like, it wasn't worth fighting them. So I just avoided fighting the turrets at all. And
Okay.
that's why I really focused on just driving up to them.
Okay.
Like, it was, and I enjoyed that. Like, oh, okay, no. If I fly in and go straight for the turrets on my own, I'm dead. No matter what ship I'm in, because they did way too much damage, and there was too many of them.
Okay.
But if I sneak around right up to it, it's different. It was new and it was actually enjoyable.
Sure.
Enjoyable workaround. The issue that the turrets had, and then they removed 2 of the turrets. And did they scale them back? Are they still size 7s?
I don't know how
I
big they
remember.
are, but I know there's only 2 that show up now. Yeah.
Yeah,
And I think that
before it
is
was 4 of them, they were
specifically
all size
because
7s.
yeah, and I think that's just specifically because of the servers. I think those will come back 100% and it be truly tough. But that obviously that like for me that's the example that I gave in the beginning, right? I think that's the obvious one. But when it comes to let me ask you, do you PvP at all?
I mostly only PvP, really.
Okay.
Like, I'm either low flying or I'm PvP.
So in what situation like I feel like we all know the game is going to be mostly NPCs. But I don't see these outside of theaters of war. I don't see these ever getting used in a PvP scenario. Do you? Other than the cave entrance that can only fit a vehicle in it.
Really? I find that
Again, come up with a scenario that you would use a ship. Come up with a scenario that you would use the ground vehicle over the ship in a PvP situation. I think it's hard.
Though, like, outside of like sneaking up on miners while they're mining, because that works incredibly, because they don't look at their radar and ground vehicles don't pop up, don't have a high enough emission to pop up on a rock. So I know that works without a doubt. You can sneak up on them in ground vehicles.
Okay.
And like I've snuck up on some miners and their rocks and just stole what they were mining while they were still mining. Like that is very successful. Hard to do. Incredibly hard to do.
Yeah. Especially because you need to land far enough away for them to not notice you and then get there fast enough to get them. But
yes. Incredibly hard to do.
Yeah. Now, what I'm referring to more is PvP scenarios that are not solo, right? So you're talking about like this is what I do when I play solo. But what I think we're hoping the game to be a lot more than the experience that we have now. Right? Like, all right, like, I go up to miners. But when it comes to like a PvP scenario when it's are ground vehicles going to be involved? And if they are, how would CIG make it happen?
Like, I would see CIG with all the systems that they're implementing, it's going to be harder to do things solo.
Yeah.
Much harder to do things solo. And so it would force us to use more people, use more means of doing things and getting things done, and force us out of single fighter ships.
Yeah, that'd be nice.
Well, multi-crew ships. Hopefully, that they can get a balance of multi-crew ships to be more superior than single fighter ships. But this is tough because currently you can get anywhere without needing a ground vehicle. Everywhere is accessible through ships. like, and on our court, there isn't anywhere you need a ground vehicle for. There's barely any places you need a ship for.
Yeah, you just can't go anywhere. It's super
yeah,
closed off, which is expected. And I think a lot of people are like, they keep mentioning like driving around cities.
yeah.
I
like,
think
hate
I think
that they
we're
didn't
dreaming
design-
as far as that being a possibility. Like I know Star Citizen is a really ambitious game, um, but something like that is probably really far in the future, guys, and not a right now
like,
thing.
No, but now thing no, because our corp isn't even designed to be drivable
Yeah,
in its current state.
yeah,
Uh, but I can see the way them working on their towns for NPCs to have their own thing, and I wonder, will we be able to drive up to these towns? Because like, will there be a no-fly zone around them? So we have to drive up to them.
yeah.
Will
I
there
mean,
be like a radius in which like you'll be shot down if you try to land in?
that's the real question here, and that's why I mentioned like, man, I don't know if no-fly zones are a good response to this question because they seem to be going away from them.
I
And
don't see that they're going away from them. I see it as more as they're
Took 'em out.
changing how they do it.
they took them out and they took the splines out. Did they do that because they want to revisit it at some point, or did they, or did they do it because they just didn't work?
I would say both, because
Okay.
like with the ship cockpits, like they took out a lot of the UI and things that we have access, well, that we can help us fly since the game's been over the years,
Mm-hmm.
and not all those features have come back. But in the example they use for the new UI for our ships for the what was it, Gladius?
Yeah.
Like it had all those features that were missing back in them.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, yeah, they took it out because it wasn't working, and they also want to change it to be easier to use and to understand, and whatever game mechanics they want to add onto it. Like it's kind of become a regular thing for them. If it ain't working, eventually they'll take it out, make the gameplay crap. Like, truth, like trading right now, it's trading is shit because they took out everything, and they're about to release 2 new ships, well, 3 ships, not 2, for cargo.
They're
And-
cargo ships. It's like, oh no.
Yeah, cargo ships, and everyone's worried about, will trading still be shit next patch
Yeah.
with these new ships? Will they really not fix trading when these ships come out? Like, the way they do things is weird because it leaves everyone in a state of fear of what's going to happen next. Like box missions, when they made them pointless, and well, they're still kind of pointless, but the changes that they've been making to them, no one even does them anymore. And it's scary. It's confusing on what's the future going to have for this type of gameplay. Will I still be able to do this ever again? And they say yes when, because it's next patch they talk about. Wait, I don't know if that's a leak. Let me hold on that. I don't want to. I know you don't allow leaks on here.
What the
So you're not talking
the
about that.
timed missions and the other ones? That's on the
Yeah.
roadmap.
Yeah, those. Okay, I don't remember. Yeah, so those missions are coming in.
Yeah.
So that fixing some of the issues with box missions
Mm-hmm.
that they've created. And
The
so
guy
that
who
leaves
created
me
those
hopeful
is in
about-
chat, by the way.
Oh, that's cool. That's cool.
Not to make
so
you
sorry. So,
nervous
yeah.
or uncomfortable for shitting on his work.
I mean, I don't know yet. I don't know. Like,
It
wait till the
seemed-
patch comes out.
it-
and come
What
back and
happened with
chat.
those is very much they started and didn't finish. But let's get back onto ground vehicles. How does all this apply to ground vehicles?
Currently, waste of time. Yes, I would agree. It is a waste of time for the state that the game is now. But if we have places that we can't go to with our, we need more places that we can't go to with our ships. Need more unaccessible areas of like harder terrain that we can't land a ship on.
Now, how will you do that? Give good, like, you're the game like this. What's fun about Star Citizen is the backseat development of it. I'm sorry, people could say that's negative or whatever, but that is what's fun about being a Star Citizen fan, because you can't have fun in the game. So how would you design those things, right? Like, that's really the question here. Is this is one way of providing feedback, is giving your own ideas on how you imagine Star Citizen will be, and then maybe the developer that makes those things thinks like, here's that, and then they implement something like that in, right? Like, that's kind of like what's cool about this game, and what's cool about the development of this game is, like, there's literally developers who create missions for the game that are sitting here in Twitch chat, and they're listening to what you have to say. And that's kind of why I made the show, is what do you think, and how do you feel about it? So yes, we obviously need to create reasons to use these ground vehicles. How would you do it?
Okay. I like that they're taking away no-fly zones, but they're not replacing them with things like, and it's unfortunate because our ships don't have like landing cues of like, when you're landing a ship, you can't see what type of ground you're about to land on. Like, if there was a way to know you can't land on this, you can't drop a ramp on this in this area, that should be all around wherever location we're trying to get to, of like giant rocks, trees, clutters of things that you cannot land on that. So you have to go back.
The problem with that is the size of the ships isn't that much different than the size of the vehicle. So if we want to use the argument of like lots of trees or lots of rocks, that's going to make the ground vehicle not really usable either.
I don't think that. No, because it's so easy right now you're landing a ship that is big enough to hold a vehicle, but you can't see all the things that's underneath your ship to make sure that you clear it to land it. It happens. I see it all the time where people's landing something and they miss whatever pole or whatever.
But what does that have to do with making vehicles more viable? Because you still have to land the ship to bring the vehicle there.
Yeah, like if there's all these obstacles that you can't land, you have to land further out.
Okay.
Away from wherever you're trying to get to.
Okay.
So it creates distance of, I don't want to walk all the way over there to do what I need to do.
Which happens with the outposts, right? Like, you hide behind because they shoot at the ship, you hide behind a mountain, but then you get out of your single-seater ship and you run over there. If you were able to take a vehicle, it would be a lot faster and more efficient, or better. Sure.
Right.
What are some other ideas?
It also sounds a little like, for cities, I really wish they were like all the other cities were like had a area like in New Babbage where like you can get to the shopping area. If you don't want to go through the whole landing process and whatnot, you can just land outside the shopping area and walk up to it. Like, I love that.
I feel like they should have integrated roads in as well. I think that would have been a simple and easy win, is to not just have the terrain, but to integrate some road-like systems to get from your, I guess, highlight points in the game. Like, I think they did a really good job with the box missions, putting them on the roof, but at the base of those buildings, they could have totally had a lobby that you could place them in, right? And have the same scenario on the ground.
Agreed. Like,
I don't know how easy that is, but yeah.
I would think it would be more like, I wish for ArcCorp, there are buildings that you can land on, like it's like public access that you can land on and just go straight down to the city area. Don't have to go into the whole airport or nothing, and do what you need to do and come back and take off. And like, that building is a public space that you can land on if landing is available.
And they should do the same thing with ground vehicles. That is a really good idea, by the way, that like you request landing in those areas and it's like a parking place at a shopping center or something. Like, they're available until they're not available, and then you have to go to the spaceport. But again, that's totally off topic. So
true.
We should rate it back in, and then like your final thought or so. All right.
What's the name of the city? Lorville.
Okay.
Louisville's outside city limits. I used to do box missions where I would land outside the city limits and
I was hoping
drive
somebody would
vehicles
say
up
this.
to the areas out there and take a train if I need to
Sure.
to get to the other place to drop off the boxes. I miss doing those. Those were fun. I didn't even know the outside areas had entrance ways into it.
Mhm.
Instead of doing that, like those areas need to be developed more so that force players to go to them.
Well, what forced
Um,
that was the no-fly zone.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that is true. That's true.
So that was cool.
That is true.
But yeah,
Huh.
we'll have to see when it comes to that. I think that was a huge win at the time for ground vehicles, and then it kind of went away because you could fly right up to it now. I'm pretty sure without any issue.
So there's no flies. No, they got rid of no fly zones over there too.
I think so, but I'm not. I haven't done them in a while. I guess maybe Twitch chat can let us know if they have some experience with it. But I don't. They say you can fly close, but not too close. Okay. So no fly zones are still a thing. They're just not doing the splines anymore, I guess.
Yeah. Okay. So those are still a thing. You still need vehicles for those.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
So, and I think that takes like one of the points I was trying to make and say, hey, they're going away from no fly zones. I mean, they really did at New Babbage, though. That's the thing, is in their most recent city, they went away from no fly zones, and they really want to allow us to fly through things and land wherever. And Lorville was their first city, and I think they're learning from it. But what direction are they going in exactly with them? It's hard to say. And how can vehicles tie in?
No, I understand why. Like New Babbage, the buildings in New Babbage are made at a much higher quality than Lorville is.
Yeah.
I wouldn't allow no one to try and fly that close to Lorville because those buildings are trash.
Yeah,
like
because it was their
they're
first
just
one.
cubes.
Yeah.
Like I understand the logic in that. But there's nothing to see here. They don't want people taking screenshots of those buildings up close.
It's all about the screenshots, man.
Yeah.
Design around the screenshots.
So yeah, so that makes sense. Like New Babbage, those buildings are much more thought out. Not functional, but the textures are better.
Okay. Well, all right, Uriah. Do you have anything else that you want to add before we let you go? Last final thought.
What do you think is more important? Like CIG crafting scenarios for us to use these vehicles, or players
CIG crafting the scenarios. The emergent gameplay thing is the most frustrating thing that I hear every time I hear it, because I want to play a game where I play the game that the developers make. I don't want to play the game that the players are making. When I log into a game, I want to go, what missions do I have on my Mobi-Glass, and do them. I am so tired of joining this game and trying to figure out what to do and not have the game tell me what to do. And at the same time, have so many of those things that I don't have enough time to do them. So I can't wait to log in the next time. Because in the current experience, it's like, all right, what can I do? Who's online? Do you guys want to join me and do this stuff? Do you not? Okay, let's go, and there isn't enough crafted gameplay elements yet. And I think for me, that's like the biggest purpose of this show, is saying, what can CIG do to give a purpose to ground vehicles? Because guess what? There's not enough for us to do with them, and it's a big, huge world, and there's no 5-minute drives to get from one city to the next, which would be like a reasonable time to drive from one place to another in a video game. 5-10 minutes, let's say, right? So
Right.
yeah, I want CIG to craft it. I want CIG to create that scenario for me.
you don't ever worry that like maybe CIG's crafted content will always be at a point where you will get bored of it?
No, I don't worry about that at all, because everything they're doing is to make sure that it's procedural, unique, varied, and based off of the simulation of the world. So it's ever changing and can be somewhat scripted by them.
Okay.
So,
like, because I don't think I've ever played a game where I didn't get bored of whatever scripted content that the game company has made.
that's fine.
Eventually, I always get
I
bored.
get where you're coming from. Like, obviously, I'm not saying that I'm not going to take that and do my own thing with it, or PvP, which is obviously non-scripted content, right? Like, those kind of things. But I still think you can, and I think this is CIG's goal, is to go, I'll give you a scenario, okay? Let's use, like, the Jumptown scenario. But let's have it be a little bit more handcrafted by them. There's a mission type that is going down to a bunker, okay? And there's some super valuable stuff down there, and this mission giver sends you there to get it. But at the same time, there's another mission that's given to unlawful players to defend it or whatever, right? They can even, like, it could even be like a big event. There's this place where a lot of action is happening. We can use the example of lots of AA turrets around, so you're going to need to take in a ground vehicle. We have one parked just outside. Go to this location, and we'll meet you there. Okay, land. Next part of the quest, you know, you finished objective number 1. Land at the outpost. Get the ground vehicle. Objective 2. Objective 3, drive to the outpost. Check. Objective 4, enter, you know, that kind of thing. Like, do I think that can get boring if it's just PvE? Yes. But if they integrate it into situations where that area is a high traffic area for everybody, and maybe there's no comm array there or something, then no, it won't be as scripted and boring and hard to.
Cool.
And personally, for me, I'm an MMO player. You grind the same instance over and over and over again, waiting for your gear. Whatever. Like, I like that kind of gameplay. That's what I like. So I like grindy games. I like grinding. I like repetitiveness. It's kind of weird to say, but those things I don't mind doing if there's a goal at the end for it. So.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Like,
you sound like the opposite.
No, ish. I just don't. I'm not into grinding endlessly without new ways to do it.
That's fair. For me, it's the purpose. If there's a purpose to the grind, it's fine. But the purpose for me cannot be click, look at the amount of money in my Moby Glass. The purpose for me is each grind has to have a unique and different and valuable ending, whether it's a valuable rare item, a valuable usable item, you know, reputation to buy a nice real estate thing in the game, whatever. You can name anything. But each thing, if the end goal is different, the grind being somewhat similar bothers me less.
Like, with also CIG would have to allow us to be able to steal from players easier.
They will. It just comes down to looting, right? Like, that's literally something that's coming. I know it's annoying that we don't have it, but we'll get it. Yeah. I don't know. That's me, though. But all right, Uri, we're going to let you go, and we'll go to the next caller.
Yeah.
I appreciate your call, and I appreciate your perspective, because coming from a PvP side going, hey, I use ground vehicles all the time. In the game now. I wasn't expecting a call like that, so I appreciate it, man.
No problem. No problem.
All right. Later, man.
Later.
Bye now. All right, our next caller is Trivana. I'm going to ask how to say it. Traviana? Is that how you say the name?
Traviana.
Traviana. Okay, there we go. I got it.
Yeah, yeah.
So, what's up, man? How's it going?
It's fine. It's good day. It's cool. I watch your shows very often, and I'm for first time here, and I apologize for my bad English.
Oh, it's fine.
Uh, some people forget uh what Chris shows in if I remember was 2.0 patch on the CitizenCon. I don't remember which years was, but he shows we can't land everywhere on the planet because it's bad weather, and we need to use the ground vehicle to approach the destinations where we want to go.
Okay.
That is the first. The second is the statistic which we have now in the Star Citizen are not yet done. It's not finished because we will have the spaceman and
Okay.
our hero need to breathe. But now it's not so important because the orc suite is like infinity breath.
Now, can
But
I
in
stop
the
you for a second? Because the big
yeah,
thing, and I've been waiting for somebody to say it. Why were we not allowed to land with the Aquila in that presentation? Do you remember
yeah,
why?
because the weather
Yes.
was very bad,
Yeah.
and the Andromeda don't have good aerodynamic.
So that's
That is
been
the
mentioned
second
a lot.
reason. Yeah, and for that reason, we need to have ground vehicle to approach the destinations.
Yep.
The second thing is if it's a planet or the moon, and if don't have oxygens, we need to breathe, and the ground vehicle will save the time to approach the destinations where we will go out of the ground vehicle, and then we will use the breath of our suite
Because what
because
you're
maybe
saying, okay, so what you're saying is if you have to land super far away from your destination,
yeah,
sure you can run, but you don't have enough oxygen to get you there.
yes,
But a ground vehicle
yes,
would.
exactly,
Okay.
exactly. And maybe you will go in the cave, and in the cave everyone now that need a lot of time to go in and go out.
Mm-hmm.
The other things which I think CIG will make it, I'm not so sure, but we now will have the animals on the planet. So
Okay.
what will stop us if we use the ground vehicle to hunt animals, to kill them and sell on the some planets? Maybe the skins will be much more profitable with the ground vehicle, not with the ships, to
Yeah.
hunt the animals. And I think that will be very good. The other things is ground vehicle don't use the fuel; they use just energy, and that will save the money.
Yeah. That's one
For
thing that we'll have to see how they work that into game because obviously fuel costs like nothing right now.
yeah, but that will change with the systems of Tony, and depend of how much people are in that systems, the price will change a lot.
But the fuel
Uh,
argument, I always argue, always come back with this: the distance that we're watching this guy travel on the screen, right? And I'll bring it back to just
yeah,
us. You can fly that in a ship in 2 seconds. What would take them a few minutes? So is fuel really being saved?
the ship is not in safe if you are go away from the ship, but if you have friends who are in ship and you will go with the ground vehicle to make the missions or whatever, you will go save the money for fuel, will have oxygen to make what you need to do for the missions, and you will go back to the ships with the vehicle. And
Mm.
it's not only for the bread. And the second thing is you don't know what planet can provide as a temperature. Maybe you will freeze or will be very hot, and the ground vehicle will protect for that.
Sure, but only. Okay, like here, we'll bring it back on screen and we'll use the example. The ground vehicle drives to a place, but then eventually you get out. So the temperature
Yeah,
thing is okay, sure, but I see what you're saying. I see what you're saying. It's just without creating weather to force your ship on the ground in some annoying way, which I think is kind of annoying. I don't see the reason for using a ground vehicle unless the game forces it because it's cool. See what I'm saying? Like I'm having a hard time with the fuel argument because the distance at which a ground vehicle can travel in a reasonable amount of time is so short in comparison to how far a ship can fly in that amount of time, therefore using no fuel. None. So the cost difference is irrelevant.
yeah, but you have one other things like microtech. You will go on microtech out to the ships, and you don't have only timer for the breed. You have the timer for freezing.
Sure.
You don't. So that is the factor.
But if you have a ship that you could fly right to there, which in most situations in the game right now you can, and I know people forgot about this specific event where they were like, "Yo, weather, ooh, you got to land." The
Yes.
which we've never seen again, and it's 5 years ago. So we don't know
Yeah.
if this is still planned or not, to be honest, or if this is still a thing.
Uh,
It probably is,
it,
but yeah,
it
the
it's still a thing.
okay, but
If you remember, CIG show us the lighting, which they work very hard to be more
just
good,
this week, right?
realistic. No, no, no. That week was for the space, but in the past they show us the lighting in the sky, how it work.
Oh,
So that
okay.
will,
Yeah, I think I remember
and
it.
I don't remember exactly. Maybe I am wrong, but if the weather is bad and have the lighting, will not be very good to fly there with your ships.
Hmm.
Because the lighting can damage your components on the ship, and that's
Ah,
not very fun.
you're talking about the Squadron 42 thing. Yeah, I remember what
Mm,
you're talking about. Yeah, so that's I was hoping somebody would bring that up. So not just weather that we're familiar with, but like weather that affects your components and your ability to see things and stuff like that. Uh, how this is the question that I've come back with that one. How the way our ships look internally look exact. The way our vehicles, our ground vehicles, look like is exactly the same as our ships. I feel like they're powered the same way. They would be affected by EMP the same way.
but normally the big things like ships
Yeah.
will be um, eventually will be hit in the from the lighting, but the ground vehicle is very small, so
The
we
ship
will
would
not be.
get hit more.
Yeah, yeah,
Okay.
and
Okay.
will be very hard with the ships to avoid the lighting. But with ground vehicle, it's much more chance to avoid the lighting.
Yeah.
Uh, and I'm not very sure, but will be very good if CIG make it animals. We can hunt them and sell the skins or the animals. And
I think they will.
with the ground vehicle will be much better.
Yeah.
Other things, it's I think someone mentioned talk about that point of interest where have fly no fly zone because of the turrets.
Yeah.
That is the other things, but depend of what you want. Maybe you can go and shoot NPC or player, or you can go uh, to find animals sell somewhere in the systems, or maybe some your friend is in very bad situations and you need to go and grab it on the planet, but you need to approach your friend with the ground vehicle. But that is, I don't think, or maybe cargo purpose, because we know in the future we can have a land and build the maybe cities. I'm not very sure, but maybe ground vehicle will help us to transport cargo from the point A to point B, like from the city to ship. If you don't want to go with ships in that city or village, because we know in the future we need to pay the taxes if we want with the ships on the ground on some ship on some city.
Okay. But a ground vehicle may not. Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah,
Like hangar fees and stuff.
yeah, you can maybe pay the taxes and you will know the ships in safe, but maybe the taxes is very high and you will just land one around the cities and go with the vehicle to save some money. And the end game of the Star Citizen, we still don't know what will be, but for now, it's only for the money
Yeah.
and the journey, and just to explore the map.
It's true. Which is why I brought this up, is like it feels so empty right now. Like the game in general feels pretty empty, but when it comes to ground vehicles, it feels more empty than in any other situation. I think we have relatively good gameplay for spaceships. I think we have fairly decent content when it comes to FPS, although the AI obviously don't respond very well. But we have missions and things to do, and ground vehicles have largely been ignored, so it feels hard to figure out what they could do to do it. But all right, Travania, if I don't know if I'm saying it right, but the
Traviana, it's okay. I'm very sorry for my bad
it's
English,
difficult.
but I think
Traviana.
one more.
There we go.
Yeah, Traviana. It's old browser game. uh, I remember now, Chris say if you want on the city, you can pay on the NPC to transfer your cargo, or you can do it manually. So if you do it without NPC, without to
A
pay
vehicle would be
about,
useful.
yeah,
Mm.
exactly.
Mm,
And
okay.
some cargo, uh, maybe we will need the vehicle to transport from ships to wherever need to be transported. And Chris, he mentioned in the futures, ships will be let's say if ships have cargo, it will be very hard to land on the ground. If they are empty, it will be much good to land. So that is the next things to need to ground vehicle, and with ships you will land on the ground where you can. Sorry, maybe you don't understand me.
I'm trying to figure that part out. I didn't get that one.
Yeah, I mean, uh, one ships have cargo, and the cargo is mass, and that
That's what I
mass
thought. So it's heavy.
will hit thrusters. Yes, will hit the thrusters, and will be very hard to land. Every point have
Yeah.
different.
I get what you're saying 100% now. So if we were going to try, even if it was a short distance, take a ship that had a lot of cargo in it and we were going to move it even from one part of our homestead to another, it would be actually quite difficult to fly because it's so heavy. So it makes more sense to take multiple ground vehicles and drive them there because that would be easier.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, that actually has some validity to it. Because then your fuel cost thing comes into play. Then how the ship flies, all that stuff, it kind of makes more sense to me. But even then, there's little spaceships that do cargo just like that. So maybe I don't know. Who knows? But maybe they don't have the engines to move the stuff. So maybe it even depends on the type of cargo you have. But all right.
Yeah. But
We have had quite a long call though, so just try and get your final thought in, and then we'll go to the next caller.
Okay. For the village we will have in the next patch, or I don't remember, this year will be the village. They don't have hangars, and to approach every building we will need a vehicle. Maybe. We'll,
Maybe.
yeah.
That's a maybe, but yeah, I could see that. Even if maybe they're kind of tight, too close together to fit a ship in between. But then again, a lot of ground vehicles are the size of ships.
Yeah, but they show us garage for the vehicle, but not hangars.
Okay, but just because they show you a garage doesn't mean it makes more sense, right? Players are always going to use what makes more sense, and if it makes more sense and it's quicker to just fly a ship, that's what they're going to do. So again, the question about this show today is how is CIG going to make it so you're not just using a spaceship because it makes more sense, right? It has to make sense to use the ground vehicle. And I think your cargo example was the best one. That was something they've... And the animals. I know you want to kill your animals, but the thing about the cargo being heavy, I think was a really strong argument there, and yeah, I think that is kind of the one that strikes me as the strongest for sure, and killing animals.
That is for me, and again, sorry for my
no problem.
English.
No problem. Let's see if I get this right. Obrigado. Did I get that right?
Yeah.
Good.
I don't think I have more to say. Maybe some animals will be illegal or not. That will be depends, and will be very fun.
Yes, and then now you're killing even is more dangerous.
Yeah, but one things maybe the pirate maybe will approach with the ground vehicle, the mining ship, to see if the mining ship have defense like 2 people with a single seat flight or not, because the ground vehicle will be very hard to detect on the radars, and maybe someone will see you don't have defense, no one defends you, and he will call friends to come to you and kill you. Take the what you mining may. So that is for me, and thanks to have with me.
No problem. I'm sorry. I thought you said you were Brazilian.
No,
So I
from
just said
Bulgarian.
thank you in Portuguese. You
From
played a
Bulgarian.
Brazilian MMO. Okay. Yeah, my bad.
No, I play World of Warcraft sometimes.
Oh, you said something about Brazil.
No.
Well, then I misunderstood. But I caught literally everything, but that. I swear it was a browser game. Oh, okay.
Browser game.
Browser
Yeah,
game. Gotcha.
It's old browser game.
Gotcha. Yep, sorry. I just had a moment. I apologize. But yeah.
No
So
problem.
no, I think you had some really strong arguments, and you're clearly a hunter when you play games. I learned a little bit about you. You really want skins.
I want just to make some profit from the cargo. Never
Yeah.
mind if we will be drugs or animals.
Whatever. Just
Yeah.
want to make it worth it. But all right. Have a great one. Thank you so much for your call. And we actually have a couple of tweets that we have to go to. So hopefully this scene works. It does. Sweet. So using hashtag ATC if you don't feel like calling in. Some people prefer to do this if they don't have microphones or whatever. A reason to require the need for ground vehicles could be large, strong ground shields. So like Star Wars, like Empire Strikes Back, the AT-ATs were sent to disable the shields. Vehicles could be sent in, disable outpost homestead shields before ships could attack SC. It's in sci-fi, but those don't exist in Star Citizen. But that would be one of the best additions to the game to bring that in. Yeah, yet is a big thing. So I think really strong anti-air or something like this where you actually have to disable something to allow ships to infiltrate could make some sense. I think that's pretty good. Real quick, let me change to the next one. I think that's a really solid point. And then that was from Mud Trucker, by the way. And this one is from Canuck 2099. And he says, SaltEMike, other than what you said about the rock or approaching outposts for PvP, I use them for ground exploration for when looking for rare harvestables like proto or hand minables on surface. They don't render from the air if you're too high and moving too fast. Cheers, man. Yeah, I mean, that's just a stupid game problem, right? Like, we just play a stupid game that isn't finished. So the fact that things don't render isn't really a good purpose for ground vehicles and Star Citizen. But I see what you're saying. The searching for something like harvestables, maybe your ground vehicle scans only work on those, but your ship vehicle scan cannot, right? Something like that. Even something as simple as that, where, yeah, if you want to look for these things, you fly to a certain biome, but then in order to actually actively scan for them, you have to use a ground vehicle. That would make some sense. But all right, we have two more callers, and I'm going to have an angry wife if these aren't a reasonable amount of time. I'm such a bad host, and I have a hard time keeping people on a decent timeline. But all right, we have Quams, who's called in before but hasn't called in a while. Welcome, Quams. It's been a while. It's good to see you.
Hey,
How are you doing?
It's been a while, yeah. I'm good. A lot of work. That's why I only was listening passively to you over the last weeks. But still enjoyed it. Keep on.
I appreciate it. So what are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, I think that we have to think about one thing first. It's a space game, so I don't think that the ground vehicles will go beyond being a nice addition to the whole thing at all. which doesn't mean that at the moment they are not treated like the proverbial red-headed stepchild, which is a bit sad.
Yeah.
On the other hand, I mean, there's one quite important feature of a ground vehicle compared to a ship, and that is it can't fall down. And I think this is something where there's a good chance for CIG to give them more value. At the moment, what we have is, from my point of view, mainly, it's nice and extremely cool fluff. I have to say, the first time I drove my Ursa Rover out of my Carrack, I was like, wow! I mean, there was no sense to it. I was just driving it out of a Carrack, but it was nevertheless pretty cool. But the thing, and I think this is where CIG is, I don't know if you can say make a mistake, and that is the price or the general pricing part about it. I think when you buy them in store, if you take away that it's a pledge to develop the game, if you really say, okay, it has comparable amount of money, they are too expensive.
Mm-hmm.
So the thing about a ground vehicle needs to be that it's by definition less complex than a ship. It needs way less technology. It's a pretty thorough technology. The wheel in most of the times, even tracks are used for quite a while now, and protect that a couple of 100 years in the future. So it's a proven sturdy technology, and for that they have to come cheap. And I think this is where the real interest come in if you think about it. There's one thing where I always wondered up to now why, if they would ever exploit it a bit more, and that is any kind of logistics. The previous caller already said it. That's transporting goods on a planet. Yeah, I mean, if you get big, really big, ground vehicles or large numbers, ground vehicles might become interesting to transport stuff.
Yeah.
I see that
like
a bit
caravan,
more
right?
Yeah, exactly. I see a bit more for NPCs, maybe not so much for the players. Maybe the players then you take your anti-aircraft vehicle Cyclone, and you drive by it because for whatever reason they don't want to let you fly there, maybe because they want to be sneaky. And the other thing which might be interesting is like the temporary outpost or base stations. So you have you take the ballista, and instead of shooting stuff, it has a big first aid area, a med center, maybe a fuel tank and rearmoring. So basically the idea is you are doing some kind of campaign, you're doing some mining operation, some whatever why on the planet. I mean, there's thousands of things you can think about. And instead of setting down an outpost, which is a bit structure, which can't move, which is a bit less flexible, there's a certain number of trucks coming out of maybe only one or two Hercules, and you drive them out, and then you have a mobile, ambulance, lazaret, one of those things. There's a place where you can land a small, like an arrow. You can come in, and it's easily to rearm, to refuel the arrow, and it can go out again. And it's way less complex, and if they make it right, cheaper. I mean, you can make it to the 10th of the price of something like a Starfarer.
The problem is
deliver,
what you paid on the website is not a 10th of the price. So that's what one of the first callers said, and it was kind of like, hey man, you're charging us this much money for it and not even really giving us a clear vision. We have to sit here and do what you just did and imagine what could be possible without them ever telling us that was in their plans, right? And that does make it kind of difficult to make the argument that it costs less, because in the end it costs the same. And I know in-game is different than how much you pay for real money, but you have to justify that cost in some way. And I think the biggest issue that CIG has with ground vehicles is they haven't justified the cost of even $10 for a ground vehicle yet.
Yeah, I'm completely with you. I think they're too expensive. If you look at the Nova or in Ballista, I mean, seriously, what do you get out of buying a ballista? What do you get out of buying one of the tongs? Nothing, exactly. And honestly, I don't even. I really racked my brain, and I had enough time with the previous callers to continue thinking about it. I racked my brain about, okay, what can you do? Come up with a scenario that justifies that price. And I don't think it's possible. I think the catch they have, or the trap they are in, is that currently the ground vehicles are too expensive.
Yeah, but they cost just as much as for them to make from a development standpoint. So the price has to be what it is. There's no denying that the price of these ships are based on something, and it has to be based on the cost that it is to make them. They're just as detailed. They're about the same size, right? So the cost justification of real life money, as much as people might hate it, makes sense because it costs money to make them, therefore they charge people for them, right? So that idea, I think, makes sense to me. When it comes to the in-game pricing, they are really cheap. They are really cheap.
Oh yeah,
but
I bought myself
so is
a
everything else.
A couple of times.
You know, but so's everything else. So it's kind of just it for me. The cost argument is an argument that's valid, but it really comes down to fun. How are you going to make them fun, and how are you going to make them purposeful without being too restrictive? And I think your idea of like this kind of ground-based scenario is cool, but also non-representative of anything that we have in the game currently.
No, I don't think there's anything representative in the game currently which justifies ground vehicle, to be honest.
Other than racing.
I think is that. Yeah. Oh yeah. Okay. But yeah, and that's community organized up until now. To be quite fair, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Which is why I don't think it's been mentioned very much. Because it absolutely requires community organization, and that is not how it should be.
No, definitely not.
Yeah.
I mean, there's one other thing people always come up is with the weather.
Yeah.
And yes, I'm completely on that side. That's right. I think that the weather influences for flying are still too weak, or too weak is the wrong word. They are too inconsistent, which with what I experience when I'm out myself. On the other hand, if they get so strong that they blow away ships, I think the physics engine as it's configured right now would end up in blowing away the ground vehicles as well.
How are you going to land anyway?
Oh yeah. That's the next thing. Well, you can drop it from the sky, can't you? Like with parachute, whether you're landing, forget it. You're right. I mean, this is...
I mean, a warning of bad weather coming, maybe, but also at the same time, it's such a. I think that's such like an outlier, because how often I think we will come down to planets and moons that have more consistent bad weather than others, but should weather really be like a main point of focus on this, or is it more of like an outlier scenario?
It's definitely an so okay, you could create planets where you say, okay, these for some reason there is it's something interested there, some minerals, some whatever, and it's just a planet.
It affects your scanners.
Mountains.
You can't find those
affects
minerals.
Your scanners. Yeah. You have to be closer. But even then, I mean, even you go there, I mean, you can fly low with the ship. The other thing would be you have it's close to the main planet, so there's a lot of heat to the star. Sorry, there's a lot of heat on one side and coldness on the other side. So you create a lot of atmospheric effects. So that's why it's a permanent storm. And so the only way to move there is with ground vehicles safely, and then there's special ports where you can land or something. Again, edge case, and as much as I'm basically maybe not answering the question of when you posed at the beginning of the call, I think they are. We have to admit they are a corner case, and for some reason they make a lot of money at the moment. That's why they actually put them in the game.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think they just want to create what it really comes down to is I think they just want to create a world that is believable, and in order to do that, there needs to be vehicles with wheels. But I don't think they're justifying the purpose for them just yet, and I don't think they ever have for me. And I think they will. I absolutely think they will. I'm just more curious what our little community thinks and how they would do it.
I mean,
the
if they move them to a convenience area as well a lot, I mean, it's a bit like I don't know if you I spent quite some time Cyberpunk over the last months, and even the driving control is the worst I ever seen in a AAA game ever. And they are more convenient. It's more convenient to get from A to B, but I think Star Citizen is way out from these parts.
Yeah, Star Citizen ships are more convenient. And that's the thing is how do you create that conveniency for ground vehicles? We'll see.
Look at it. As an example, have you ever done the box missions? I guess you have the modern ones where you have to collect the boxes from 3 different. I mean, you don't even walk. You just open just have your, especially when you have a Pisces. I mean, you just have the Pisces with the open back, and you hop in your Pisces from building to building, right?
Yeah, exactly.
To catch the box. Yeah. In reality and in a real environment, you would land and you would drive your car out and you drive between the 2 places with your little runabout.
Because you're not allowed to randomly land a spaceship wherever you feel like it. So like the no-fly zone thing is the argument. But I don't think they want to do that.
I think they don't want to do that because the effort is, at least at the moment, if you want to push down the no-fly zones, really, it's from the concept to the game mechanics, it gets really, really complex pretty quickly. Because what you in reality want a real ATC. No, you want an ATC, you call the ATC, and the ATC tells you like ship guidance, airplane guidance is done these days. You want to call them and they assign you a number, say, okay, you're right, you're coming in, use corridor, flight in corridor, blah, 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 on landing pad, blah, blah, stay in that flight corridor and start finding you like crazy when you move out of it.
Yeah.
And with real things as well, like you always arrive in Laurel from the east and you fly out from the west or from the north or south, depending whatever happens. I think that would be extremely awesome. I think that would create a lot of really, really added value to the game. But I also know that implementing this reliable is hard work, extremely hard work. And
they proved it. I mean, they tried.
But they took the Mickey Mouse route, so to say, and I don't blame them. It's like, okay, we always create the spline where you're coming in. There needs to be some guidance. The spline is. If the spline would just have been, a lengthy, slowly slope that goes down or goes up, and if you've been called out, like, okay, this is where you need to enter, this is where you come in, then it would have been worked. But the way they did it, some popping up, and I guess there's a lot of maybe the servers, maybe the model, maybe all the stuff behind it, the whole backend didn't support it, and that's why they took them out. I don't know, but this is. I mean, even with an outpost, you just imagine the little outposts have them. You would drive around the outpost with your little car if you can afford it. Like my current most preferred ship, the MSR. I mean, you just have your whatever dollar car in the back, and you drive out and you drive. You pick up your boxes, you whatever you need to do in the outpost. Transport your goods to the area because it's sort of self-serving and then you drive in again and fly away. But it's fluff. And
you're doing that because it feels more immersive, realistic. It brings you into the game world more. That's why you're doing it. But you're not doing it because it makes more sense.
No.
Because you would in the game much quicker, even in an MSR, much quicker, just get to the cockpit, fly to the next 5 kilometers over, even 1 kilometer over, and land again. Get out. Do
Absolutely.
Because it's still quicker.
Absolutely. So I guess they have to create. The inconvenience if you look at the universe as in how it could work in reality, the inconvenience for flying the ship close to the ground and landing wherever you like would be so high that you actually would start using the little ones.
Mm-hmm.
And unless they don't create them, I don't see it more than like the scenarios I imagined, transporting, these first aid stuff, refueling on a planet, maybe even putting on a little asteroid. But again, right now, as we all said, they're too expensive for that to really make sense.
Yeah. For the value you get out of a ship versus a ground vehicle, it's just not comparable at the moment.
No, that's why I don't own a rock. Seriously, you go out with a prospector that is decently equipped, and after a weekend you have the money for a rock. I don't buy myself one.
After one mining session, you have enough for a rock. So it's quite easy, and same goes for the rock. Pretty much, a couple sessions and you have enough for a prospector. So that's a whole nother story where they're just a mess. When it comes to that stuff.
But on the other hand, this is exactly what alpha is about. Seriously, playing around with what creates what amount of money, time wise, complexity wise, and this is what an alpha is about. And you can actually see that. The mining gameplay is developing in the direction and if you listen to them, what they do, which I think gets more and more interesting every time they add new stuff. And this is because they see players playing. They, for example, watch your stream when you do 30K. They get telemetry data like in shitloads.
Yep.
And think around it. That's what an alpha is about. I like the refineries, even though the money wise it's so right. But it's somehow cool. I like returning to a refinery and you sit there and
it
you
feels
start
realistic.
Yeah.
But they created.
But I love this stuff.
They did create an incentivization. They incentivized it, where you'll double your money if you use the refinery, but you just gotta wait.
Oh yeah. That's right. I haven't used the refinery for a while, so the numbers always change. That's why I'm careful to push them forward.
No, they're good. They just messed up trading, basically. Trading ruined refineries. Refineries are fine. Just the fact that you can't sell your refined ore that easily after is where they kind of screwed up and need a big fix. But who knows?
Yeah, as somebody else said, if looking at the in a couple of weeks we have a ship that can transport a shitload of goods, and then the hulls are in the pipeline. So man, they have to do something for trading, otherwise.
Yeah. I'm sure they know that, but let's see what they do. Yeah. We'll see. I'm sure we'll get mad, definitely. But it'll all be okay in the end.
We always get mad. Isn't that part of the game?
Yes. Yes, it is.
New things.
I don't like
Everybody
this.
Shouts.
Actually, I like this. It's not that bad. It's basically what it ends up being.
Yeah. And in the end, it's just it's always like that. I think it's always funny after each what's the Thursday now called? ITC, ITC, no?
ISC.
Oh, ISC, yeah, sorry. After each ISC, you have a look on Spectrum, and people complain for the little detail, like, there's a drivetrain link missing in that pre-model of the tank.
You know why? You know why? Because they don't have a fun game to play. That's why. Because their ground vehicles don't work. That's why.
Yeah, that's why. It's all about the ground vehicles. Yep. That's the problem. Forget 30Ks. Forget the other stuff. Forget you trying to open the bloody star map for 5 times and exploding.
Oh my
rightfully.
God! Today, that was brutal.
Oh yeah. Honestly, this bug has more.
It's getting fixed. It's off topic. Don't even start.
Yeah.
I'm not even letting you go there. I'm hanging up on you if you keep going there. I'm hanging up on you.
Man, Mike. Let Meyer in and don't get into trouble with your wife.
I won't.
So So it was nice talking to you again, and I
Yes.
hope I found time to do that
I hope
again
so
soon.
too.
It's always
I always appreciated your calls, and I still do. They're always
it's
insightful.
awesome. And maybe
I appreciate it.
Maybe at some point I actually have the time with to actually join 30K at some point. But
Oh,
at the
that would be
moment,
fun. That'd be fun.
You know, at the moment it's actually remote work for some reason doesn't make me stop. That's
I've
home
noticed
office
that. It
is
actually,
always
because
there.
your work is always there, people are always
Yeah.
are always working. Yep.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
It's actually not as healthy as people might think it is.
Nope, it's definitely not.
All right, Quams.
All right.
Relax.
Mike,
Don't go to work. It's
I will.
Sunday.
You too. It's I won't do any work today. No,
Okay.
definitely not.
I'll talk to you
Mike,
soon.
nice talking to you. Yeah.
Bye now.
Bye bye.
All right, let's bring on our final caller of the day, Meyer. What's up, Meyer? Are you AFK, Meyer?
Hello?
He's not. Hello. How's it going?
Yo. Yeah, not bad. Yeah, sorry about that. I was watching the stream and I have a bit of delay, so I was like waiting for when to like chime in.
Oh, you're good. You're good. So
I'm
yeah,
a bit of an idiot.
you're the last caller, so you got kind of the disadvantage of maybe not being able to add anything new. So if you want to like reply to what people said, or start out with
Right.
something new that people might have missed.
It's all good. I mean, like, I guess it helps me because, like, you know, like I don't want to reiterate points and that kind of thing.
Sure.
So I guess the first thing, you know, like, the question for today's podcast was, what's the purpose for ground vehicles, right?
Yeah.
So, like, I guess you can kind of split it between two things, right? What is there to do today, and what is there to do in the future? Because today there's nothing to do, as in like from I believe one of the callers here said you know, like crafted gameplay wise that there's nothing to do, right? There are no missions for ground vehicles. It's all just, you know, racing with friends or staged combat Rexilla style, you know. We used to have scramble racing, but
Which
they
I
had to
saw this
remove that
back
because
on the roadmap, apparently.
yeah, so the issue with scramble racing and the reason why they removed it was because of how their terrain works. Essentially, like let's say they develop scramble racing for one patch, right? And they have like all the different like checkpoints on a moon for that one patch. If you now like have to reseed the planets, you know, like, you know, going from planet V2 to planet V3, all of a sudden a checkpoint goes from being on the ground to being, you know, like in the sky or underground. So they had to scrap it for now until like they, I guess, ray trace the checkpoints better or something like that. But that's why they had to remove it. But I guess, you know, like, again, looking forwards in the near future, you know, like they talked about Pace JKA coming in, which is a kind of wheel simulation that like racing games use. So once that comes in, at least, you know, racing around is going to be fun.
Yes.
But yeah, otherwise, you know, like, to answer the question, I think, you know, like at least today, there is nothing to do with ground vehicles apart from dick around with friends.
Yeah.
But you know, like, I do think that there's a lot to do in the future, you know, like...
I'm less concerned about today. I think there's nothing to do in a majority of the game today. I think we know the game that we're playing right now, but the future is more what I'm asking for, to be honest, is what's the purpose of it in the future? What can they do to give them purpose? Because even when I look into the future personally, I have a hard time seeing the argument for using a ground vehicle over a ship in almost every scenario.
Okay.
Like, unless you literally say this is a no-fly zone, or there's AA turrets, or hey, this cave has too small of a hole, no ships allowed, right? Like, that's about it.
Yeah. So I have a few points that, like, you know, I put down, and I have some more that I expanded upon from, like, you know, other people, you know, other callers today. So I guess, you know, the first one was, you know, they were talking about hiding your signature. That's something you can kind of already do in game right now.
Yeah.
If you take the shield out of a cyclone, then, you know, like, the minimum distance before you can like actually get somebody in a radar is 20 meters, right?
Whoa. That's
yeah.
crazy.
Yeah, so at least, you know, with things like that, with currency, you know, like balance and that kind of stuff, you know, like hiding your signature and driving somewhere, that's something, you know, that's feasible.
Okay.
You know, but like, yeah, if we now talk about mechanics that will come in the future or things that would need to change for things to work, something that I think everybody touched on was atmospheric hazards, like weather, But I think that it would be more than just weather in general in order to make it so that there are zones where you can go to and zones where you can't.
Yeah.
I think it was the 2016 CitizenCon where they showed off the sandworm, right?
Yeah.
You showed the video of, and there was sandstorms and that kind of thing. Well, I mean, if the weather is where I am or where you are, it's just air, then I guess it wouldn't be too much of an issue.
Yeah.
But let's say that instead of it being clouds, it was sand or silica, that kind of stuff in the air that if it enters your ship's intakes, it would damage your engines. That would give you more reason to okay, I need to land and I need to make sure that I do what I need to do on a vehicle.
Yeah.
If they make it so that the weather effects are constant and that kind of stuff, or the frequency of a storm coming through is high, then you'd have these windows of opportunity to land. And I think that I think it's reasonable enough to think that Star Citizen is going to have they showed us this physicalized weather entity thing. If you've played Valheim has physicalized weather entity, a storm moves through the map.
Yeah.
And in Star Citizen, storms will be moving through the map, and they'll have actual physics, and they will be actual entities. So much so that in 2016, I believe, Chris Roberts talked to Radar Ranger, who owns that app called My Radar, and they talked about the feasibility of having an app that could track the weather on planets. So,
which is so ridiculous, but yeah.
Yeah. It's mad, but so that in and of itself would mean that there might be some planets that would be really hostile, and with the diversity of planets and moons in Star Citizen, I think that there's enough for people to be like, oh, okay, well, you have to have a vehicle here, but it wouldn't stop people who don't want to ever drive to go to the to do that gameplay if they didn't want to. They would have to. If they wanted to go to that place, but if they didn't, then tough, go somewhere else.
Yeah.
Yeah. That was one point. I'm trying to roll through things. I'm sorry if
I just got the text,
pause, but
I just got the text.
Right.
But yeah, it's fine.
Yeah. Don't use my name, please. I think I'm in enough trouble already.
No,
but
we'll blame Razor. We'll blame Razor. He's just...
Right. So another thing, let me look at my notes real quick, because I actually wrote notes because I'm a big ass nerd. But yeah, so ground vehicles, the difference, right, to me between a ground vehicle like a tank and a plane in real life is that a plane is designed to be light enough to take off, right? Yeah. There's a reason why if you had bird wings right now, you couldn't fly, right? So a tank could afford to be big and dense, like a Gachi Basin chat, I guess. A tank can afford to be really heavy and really slow, and be able to tank shots, but also tank really, really bad weather that might throw a player or throw a ship, right? Because a spaceship is designed to travel between atmospheric densities of 0 and 1, to quote Futurama, right? Yeah. So that's another reason for ground vehicles, for the future. With the tractor beam mechanics that CIG released just a moment ago, with that, it looks like they're already making considerations for being for objects to be a certain weight depending on the gravity of where you are. If something's on Daymar, it's lighter than if it's on Microtech, which is lighter than if it's on Hurston, which is lighter than if it's on XYZ. So all that's already in place. So I feel that please stop me.
No, you're good.
But yeah, fuel economy was something you guys talked about as well, and with the way fuel is right now in Star Citizen, I don't think that ground vehicles will necessarily be feasible. They would have to change that a lot. They would have to make fuel mean something. And maybe it would on certain planets because the ship would need to work harder, but not all planets, right? But it would need to be it would need to be like a really, really important fuel mechanic. Maybe perhaps, like ships that fly right now in space, they use as much fuel as they use right now. But once they go planet side, then it's crazy,
But
once there's enough
but if we
gameplay-
make it
Mhm.
crazy, then it's
Yeah.
so annoying. Like
Yeah.
we would have to make the fuel mechanic be so annoying
Right.
that you would use ground vehicles, which is that like the right direction to go? Like that, I mean, that's what we're really talking about here. Like remember when the Nomad and the MSR came out? Nobody likes
Yeah.
that.
That's
Nobody
true.
likes
I mean,
that. And
so
the
nobody
whole thing
liked
is,
it. Mhm.
it would have to be so annoying that it would justify you
Yeah.
to use a ground vehicle to literally drive for 2 hours that would take you 5 minutes, right? Like,
No,
like
that's
that's
very
what we're
true.
talking about here. So it's just
Yeah.
that's the one when people bring up fuel, I have a really hard time with that one because of the scale
Yeah.
of Star Citizen. It's just too big. You need ships to move you around, right?
Yeah.
So it
Yeah.
does get complicated.
No, that's true. I feel like a big reason why people didn't like the MSR and the other ship was simply was a number of factors. I mean, but also because compared to other ships, your fuel economy is terrible. Like if all ships had terrible fuel economy, then the argument for that would be a bit less, I feel. But also,
You could probably
like,
log out and not play.
well, I mean, I guess as a player, you'd basically just be a bit more specific about what you wanted to do, like maybe perhaps don't make it so you have to refuel after every mission, but after every other mission, I feel like there has to be some balance there. But I guess we can table fuel economy now just because, like we don't necessarily know where it's going.
Yeah.
So like
That's right.
one of my like my last main point, I guess, or like a thing you could use for ground vehicles would be for the transport of sensitive materials. And CIG already like basically took the subplot of what is it? I think it was Solo, like where they had to like transport like a very like volatile material to a refinery, otherwise they'll blow up before like they had a very short amount of time to do it. That's basically like what Quantanium is.
Yeah.
Am I allowed to like this isn't like a plot or anything for Mando, but am I allowed to reference Mando here?
I am of the, if you haven't watched season 1 and 2 of Mando yet, you can't argue about spoilers. But I don't know what
Right.
the deal is with the UK because I don't they get it later, stuff like that.
I've seen it, but like essentially with Mando, so this is not a plot point, so like all angry letters to SaltEMike and not me, but like
Plus, we've
but
given
yeah,
them a huge spoiler warning at this point, so like, yeah, I'll clap when we can come back.
Right. So like in Mando, basically there is this one scene where like there are Imperial like vehicles that need to go into a base, right? I mean that are transporting a very, very volatile material. Think Quantanium, but it's so volatile that you can't fly it in. It has to be driven in.
Yeah.
So like so that could easily be something that a ground vehicle be useful for, like just for moving stuff that you can't move other ways. Like we're getting something very similar in 313 with like quantum sensitive materials, and that kind of stuff that you'll have to like fly, from A to B. I wonder how interesting that's going to be, but like we're getting it nonetheless, right?
Yeah, I mean you could call it gravity sensitive, maybe, like you can't pull any G's with it.
Yeah, like or
that.
like a certain height off sea level and it gets unstable or something,
Yeah.
like pressure or something.
Yeah.
But like so those are like my 3 main points. I got like 2 more which are more of a stretch in terms of Star Citizen. They're more imagine, you know what I mean?
That's fine.
But like yeah, so the what was it called again? The reunion trailer part 2, the one with the MSR and Duggan and that kind of thing, right?
Yep.
So in that they have to escape this big ass bunker, right? And if I don't see a big ass bunker very soon, I'm going to be very upset about like like misappropriated resources. But like there is a big ass bunker and they have to drive out of this bunker, right? So a huge bunker like that, you would imagine, would have components, like that are bigger than capital size, because that place was bigger than capital size, right?
Yeah.
So you're talking about like, huge shields and stuff that wouldn't be able to be transported by a ship and that kind of thing to protect the area or whatever from ships. So that would mean that, like you might need like, a ground vehicle to go inside to raid and that kind of thing, right?
Sure.
Like Mud Trucker said, like something on the ground would require would not require the same amount of lightness that something in space would need just to move things around. And then I guess my last point would be science, right? So again, this is a stretch one. So because it's a stretch, but I'm basing it off stuff that we have heard before. I'm basing it off like the Pioneer and what they've talked about, the Pioneer mechanics and that kind of thing. So essentially they've said how Pioneer mechanics are going to work is that you need to first of all take a vehicle and scan a planet or scan an area with your terrapin or something else, and then so with that vehicle it goes, okay, this area here, this patch of land or whatever has like a high amounts of like mining ore or something like that.
Sure.
But you will still need to then appraise the area. So maybe perhaps, again, this is why it's a stretch thing, right? But like maybe CIG could implement a vehicle that you would need to use in order to like appraise the land on the ground, or maybe perhaps just the materials you would need in order to appraise the ground needs to be moved around a lot, in which case a vehicle would be more, would make more sense than like flying your ship around the place, getting out, putting your, your items out of the vehicle, the ship and that kind of thing. Again, it's a bit of imagine territory there, but that's something that could possibly do. Like either like a specific vehicle or like just because I need to move my items around to find the precise location I want to put my mining base.
Yeah, and like to be fair, I'm not against these made up reasonings for doing things. Like they're already in the game. The made-up reasoning for my prospector can't mine these type of rocks is because the laser's too powerful and it can't possibly handle that much power, right? Like everything is made up. It's a video game, so there's like totally nothing wrong with making up scenarios as to why this should work over another. It's just we got to do them.
Yeah,
they have to be done. Like we have so many ground vehicles in the game, and they've created legitimately zero purpose for using them.
Yeah. So, I mean, so those are like basically all my points. I mean, I had some other stuff written about crafted versus like, player made content and that kind of stuff. But I really think that's maybe perhaps for a different discussion, maybe one you've already had. But I suppose one thing from that would be, in terms of like what they could have done better for Xenothreat. Like how we had so many PvPers.
Yeah.
And like in that what was it called again? In the post-mortem, they were like, well, we didn't have time to make something for PvPers. I just feel like how we had the Halloween event where we had to like conga line. I'm sorry, we had to PvP and like get a certain amount of kills. They could have made it so easily that like there was like a location that you had to PvP in.
Yeah.
And or like you go here and fight. And then the item, they didn't even have to make an item because the Xenothreat helmet was in that one cinematic.
Know! How are you not giving us the Xeno helmet for completing the mission? Like,
exactly.
As a trophy. Even if it's just a freaking trophy, dude, with the helmet there. Like, I don't have to wear the helmet, but the trophy. I have this dude's head.
Yeah. So exactly, and they could have either tied it in with PvP or make it a trophy, as you say. I mean, like later in the game, there's going to be like the clothes you wear is going to affect how NPCs treat you. So if you wear a Xenothreat helmet like at a outpost, expect to be shot, right?
Yeah. Did you do the conga line or did you do it legitimately?
I mean, so in my defense, Mike, I was one of the first conga liners. Okay. All right.
The you moment created the patch came out, the conga lines.
Yes. Hey, I got my mask though. Okay. All right.
Congratulations on devaluing my mask. I appreciate it.
Well, I mean, hey, it was emergent gameplay, man. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, like it's all about the emergent gameplay.
CIG, I mean, like, hey, if you want to argue this, well, first of all, Mike, we're supposed to be talking about ground vehicles,
Oh
okay?
yeah,
I mean,
let's
if you
get
want
back on topic here, okay?
but I mean, like, real talk though. I mean, like, yeah, sure, the PvP event was supposed to be for, like PvP, right? In your Gladius fighting other Gladiuses.
Yeah.
But there was value from conga lining, though, I feel. Simply because, like, while you're doing all that, you were still interacting with players. I met more players during that event than I had done, my entire time streaming or whatever, just because it was just people goofing off and, that kind of stuff and talking about the game and stuff. Like, I saw friendships and stuff being made,
So
in that conga line.
if they funneled the actual PvP event to the area, we would have been in a similar situation.
Yeah.
That's where you take the learning element from. Is conga lines are still bad and stupid, but if you want people to make friends, that's how you do it.
Right. I mean, we're playing a game at the end of the day,
Yeah.
but I feel like CIG could have easily put some extra rules in there to make it so that you couldn't conga line, like just you're not able to kill people in ships, or you have to be shot first, or like just some hidden rules that would make it so you wouldn't be eligible.
Yeah. I mean, one way to make ground vehicles have purpose is to do something like that as well. You got to do XYZ thing in ground vehicles to kind of almost bring it back. But I guess I kind of got to go because it's noon now, so it'd be a good time to call it. It's okay. No, I let you go until I have to go, basically. I want to give you all the time because it always happens at the end that we end up rushing when we give people in the early and middle as much time as they want and almost too much.
Right.
So, yeah, I mean, I guess we'll leave it there, but I think your points are solid, and I like where you're going with some things, especially where I think you and I are on similar pages with, like, weather is a thing, but it has to be justified in a different way other than just wind.
Yeah.
I like, and yeah, I don't know. It's tough, but they really do need to justify ground vehicles being in Star Citizen for me, because I want them to be.
Soon, man. Soon.
I want
soon.
Them to
imagine.
Be. Yeah.
Just imagine. Like imagine hard enough and it'll be.
Yeah. Or just play more eco, because that's what I do. But, all right, brother.
Yeah. All right, man.
We'll talk to you soon,
Take it easy.
Meyer. Thank you so much. All right, guys. So that was it for today's show. For me, usually by the end, I feel like I have a good... I usually get swayed by the end. And to some extent, I am swayed. But at the same time, I'm not convinced that without just saying, yo, you can't fly here, and I think that is one of the main solutions to the game to solve that problem, is like, hey, you can't fly here, but justifying it in different ways is the only way to give ground vehicles a purpose, because they won't have a purpose on their own. So no fly zones, weather. I think the shield idea from Mud Trucka on Twitter was like really good. And yeah, I think that's where I'm at. I'm usually like feeling a lot better about like my negative thoughts about the game at the end of the show each week, and I don't feel that way this week. So yeah, it's interesting. I just want ground vehicles to be a thing. I love racing games. I love the idea of them, but in the end, it's more of just that feeling that I want to get from ground vehicles. So I can't wait for racing to be a thing. I think one of the best arguments was definitely the mass argument, and yeah, and I think the other one is just straight up CIG saying, "Yo, go here, use this vehicle. It's part of the mission." That kind of thing. But then they have to supply it, so why did we buy it? So it's a weird one, guys. It's a weird one, but I thought it was a great show, so I appreciate it. If you haven't yet, hit the like button. If you're watching on YouTube, leave a comment below. Let me know what you thought. If you're watching on Twitch, twitch.tv/SaltEMike, we do this every day at 10 a.m. every day. Every Sunday at 10 a.m. Eastern Time. And I appreciate all the guys that do watch on Twitch and stop here live for the show. It's my most popular stream every week because I think people really do enjoy it. So again, thank you for watching, guys, and we'll see you next week. Bye, everybody.